Brandon, thanks for joining me on your day off to talk about this concept you have been talking about on Twitter. It's called atomic journaling. So what is atomic journaling?
Yeah, so I guess to back up a little bit and to kind of focus on kind of how I got to that idea is with starting with Roam, I'm kind of getting used to the software and getting used to how I can use the power of Roam in different ways. And we've talked in the past about your interest in journaling. And that kind of sent me on my own little thought journey on, well, how this actually could be a really cool tool for kind of assessing your emotional state or prompting yourself with questions regularly. And as I went through figuring out the best way to just kind of design my journaling practice within Roam, I went to kind of the different unique features of Roam, like the block referencing and the embeds and the new templated features that were released related to block referencing. And I think there's a really cool way to design journaling in Roam that you can't really do in other software. So that's kind of where I kind of came up with this concept of atomic journaling, which you've probably seen like collections of journaling prompts. Like it'll be somebody's 5-minute journal, and it'll be like 3 or 4 questions that you'll go through on a daily basis as a routine for reflection. And I really like those. But sometimes what happens when I engage with those types of things is that some of the questions start to feel rote, or they start to feel repetitive, and I don't engage with them the same way any longer. And I want to find ways to keep the journaling process dynamic and fresh and engaged and resonant. Like I want it so that the questions feel like what I want to answer, rather than just a habit of, what am I grateful for? And it's like, oh, I answered this question, the last 15 days. And it's like, I don't know, my family and my opportunities. And, while you can still find ways to refresh those common questions, sometimes it's nice to shift it a little bit. The other element of it that I'm trying to figure out is, how do I have it so that I can look back on a certain question and follow that thread into the past and see how I answer it over time and how that answer changes over time. Because say if I ask something like, what am I grateful for? It'd be nice to see a collection of all the things I'm grateful for. And then I can start to kind of meta stack those and like have a curated list of the things that most commonly appear in my gratitude practice. Or say for emotional stuff, like I could say, how am I feeling? And then I can look back over the month of August and I can say, this seemed to be a pattern of feeling. And then I can kind of look at that and say, well, what was different? What might have contributed to that? And maybe I can find ways to organize my habits and structures and daily routines so that I can start to see, hey, I wasn't sleeping as well, and it made me feel more frustrated because I was tired and cranky. And then you can get into really productive ways of adjusting that. So that's all the kind of background on how I got there. But the idea is that instead of collections of journals, or instead of collections of prompts, each prompt is its own atomic unit. So what am I grateful for? How am I feeling? Affirmational statements, or just free-form exploration are all individual prompts that are blocks within all the places it was referenced, and you can get a sense of that history. And you can kind of mix and match those blocks in order to create custom presentations of journaling questions.
Yeah, you're looking at this in a similar way that I've looked at journaling for the past 6 or 7 years, but my journaling prompts have been in groups, like a cluster of questions that I can plug and play, because I noticed that I too was beginning to answer all the questions the same. In other words, they stopped working.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I had something I could pull off the rack and plug into my practice and put this one on the shelf for a while, it doesn't take long before it's time to shift and plug and play. And that's one of the things that I'm really interested in learning about as well as teaching, because it's so easy to get into journaling creep, so that
Mm,
all we're doing is journaling, but the reason we journal is to have a better life and to live a better legacy with relationships and work and whatever creative pursuits we enjoy.
mm,
So journaling creep then comes in if we try to do all the things all at once, and then it's replacing the why behind our journal, right?
mhm,
So that's why I've long been an advocate of kind of having these little pieces and then being able to teach other people when to try a certain thing. And the beauty is that a journaling practice is never permanent. I love your term here, a dynamic journaling process.
mm.
So have you been a journaler in the past, or has Rome kind of been the beginning of your journaling process, or is it just supercharging it?
Yeah, great question. I would say that I haven't been a dedicated journaler, but I have had journaling practices in the past where I would either use Notion. I was using that for a little while. I was using, just paper-based notebooks. I usually carry a little like uh, Moleskine journal in my back pocket a lot of times. Sometimes I'd do like dream journals where I'd try to get a sense of like patterns within dreams and things like that.
Mm.
But I've never really had a discipline that I've stuck with for a long period of time. But part of that has been like I felt this potential of journaling that I haven't really been able to unlock. That I felt like I just need to find the right tool. And I know that's the thing. It's like, hey, you don't need a tool. Like, honestly, journaling, like I still feel a war within myself of like, is it better on paper and absolutely low tech versus using something that I can actually organize those things that crop up through the experience. So I haven't really been a regular journaler, but the systems that I'm building in Rome are steering me closer towards reflection. And I'm seeing immense value with that. And I'm starting to feel a sense of hope that I can really design a simple but powerful structure that will keep me engaged with it, and that I can bring my thought space into that reflective mindset more regularly and routinely.
Okay, I want to hear more about that, because I have trouble with looking back.
Mm,
It's easier with Rome because it
mhm,
seems to be more just in time. But
mhm.
expound a little bit about that, bringing your thought space into the reflection.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the things that excites me most about Rome is I see it as a tool that I can orchestrate my thought space. So how I design my daily notes template affects how I think. So the different sections of that bring myself through a bit of an algorithm of thought. Like I'm going through and if I have journaling right on my daily notes template, then when I engage with Rome, I'm thinking about journaling. And then if I can reduce the resistance for actually getting in and answering questions, then I'm going to be journaling more frequently. And then if I can select my journaling prompts for things that I want to focus on and reflect upon, then I can plan before I even get to that day how I want to spend my thinking.
It's meta intentionality, isn't it?
Yeah. Like I could even get to the point of intentionality where I say like, on the day before this big meeting I have coming up, here's a set of questions I want to reflect on. And I could say my meeting's September 10th. On September 9th, I could go ahead in time, pre-plan my daily template so that the questions are there waiting for me. And then when I get to September 9th, I'm going to open up my Rome. I'm going to see those questions, and they're going to take me through this pattern of thought for me to mentally prepare for that meeting.
That's brilliant. So would you say that it curbs anxiety plus sets the stage for your behavior and your mindset?
Yeah, and again, this is all theoretical. Like I'm building this
Sure.
right now. Like
Yeah.
this is kind of on the cusp of like I haven't tried this yet,
Yeah.
but I have it. I'm pretty confident in it because I can kind of see how it's going to work out. And then once I have the structure in place, the essential elements of maintaining this atomic journaling habit is one, having a collection or a library of journaling prompts that I like, questions that I like to answer that take me into this productive thought space or reflective thought space or anything I want. And then the other is curating collections of those prompts. So I could have like my morning journal version 1, and
Oh, wow.
I could pick 5 things from that atomic prompts library and have that as a curated collection of, morning journal version 1. And then I can have that. That's what I then bring into my daily notes. And we can jump into a screen share if you want to actually see what that could look like.
Sure. Absolutely. If it's not too personal, that would be outstanding, because that's the next place that I'm headed with this. What are the types of questions that you ask yourself?
Yeah. And that's the work in progress. So right now I've got the system and the structure pretty well built. But the next step, and that's honestly where I'm going to lean on your expertise, is like, how do I populate this library of prompts? What questions could I be asking myself? Like, what would a good morning practice look like? And then how often should I shake up the prompts? And maybe I'll do it on a weekly basis. Maybe I could do it on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
Really, it's however you want to do it. So I'm going to jump into the screen share.
Okay. That's really interesting, because I've always shaken up my practice when it got stale, and your idea prevents things from getting stale.
Yeah.
Okay, talk me through this.
So this is just my daily notes for today. So this is September 1st. And I just redid this today. So I'm kind of working through a new daily notes template. And I'm liking this better. So you'll see right here, I have a reflection and journaling section. And this was just a bit of a test I did for like Atomic Journal 01. So this is a collection of questions that I might ask myself. And these are all block references, so I can go in and view them. But the best way would be to go into Atomic Journaling, probably. Yeah, and then prompts. Yeah, this is good. So I could go. So these are the 2 sections that I would have, would be my journaling sets and my prompts library. So the sets are my curated lists, whether it be dream journals, morning journals, evening journals, planning out my day, this Atomic Journal 01, which is kind of like a morning journal template that I built, and then a prompts library of a bunch of different questions that I can use for reflection. So my plan with this is that the prompts library is where the originals sit. So these are not block references. These are the actual original blocks. Okay. And you can see the collection of where these are referenced over on the side using the reference counters.
Okay.
Yeah. So the way I would do this is I can, from my daily notes, I can reference any of these prompts directly. So say if I know the question in my head that I want to journal on, I can do that. Or I can select from a list of one of these curated sets that I built. So the one that I'm using right now is this Atomic Journal 01. So let's go to, let's build a new page. So we'll go September 3rd. Yep.
So shout out to Rome 42 you're using there.
Yeah, that's right. It's amazing. It's way easier to jump pages with that Rome 42. So thank you, Rome Hacker. So say, imagine this is within your day, and you're within the place where you do your journaling. So then all I would do to call it up would be to call up the block reference of Atomic Journal 01. And then I can expand this to apply it as text. Mm-hmm. And then even though I applied it as text, it shows up as block references because it was a reference that was the text below it. That's a little bit confusing. I had a bit of an aha moment today because when I build my prompts library and I'm building these collections, I was referencing them here, But then if I was to reference this block, it would be a reference of a reference.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to have this reference of a reference. I wanted the actual reference to go to the prompts library. And then I figured out, well, if I do it where I'm applying the children as text rather than applying the children as references, then I solve that reference of a reference problem, and it goes to the source, which would be within the prompts library.
Okay.
So that's kind of confusing, but I found out how to get around that problem anyway.
What might happen if you bracketed each of the questions and then they become pages that you reference? So
You
then
could
you
do
can
that.
reflect on that.
You could do that if you wanted to have them as pages. I like them as blocks because there's so many of them.
Yeah.
If you wanted, you could do page references. I'd have to think about the ramifications of that, but I think it could be interesting because maybe you could then add some content to the page and why that question.
Oh, yeah.
Like kind of have a little bit of a meta commentary on the question itself on the page as content. That might be valuable, but you might be able to do that within the library anyway, like within my journaling prompts library. So then if I'm to do this on September 3rd, I go through and I've expanded the children as text, and then it gives me my questions that were part of that collection. And then what's on my mind is something that I could just kind of brain dump. I'm just open reflection. And that's just to kind of get the wheels turning.
Absolutely. That is a brilliant way. That if anybody's watching this and you're not journaling, something like that, what's on my mind today, is a perfect way to just do it for a couple of weeks and get your mind going. Perfect. I love that.
Yeah, and you could almost get rid of the rest of the noise and only do that for a while.
Yep.
But then if you want to bring yourself into intentional thought spaces, you could add more pointed questions. So sometimes I like to do kind of like affirmational work where I'll actually just kind of reaffirm things that I am. You know, like maybe I'm creative, I'm thoughtful, I'm kind, I'm organized, I'm disciplined, I'm biased to action. Like I can say all these things that I kind of want to reaffirm as elements of my character that I want to make sure that I'm carrying with me into the future. And then you can click on that, and same sort of thing, you can go back in time to see all of your past affirmations. And you can use that as kind of a mind for defining your character and defining how you're reflecting, right? And then you can kind of build that into some life planning stuff and some other work that you could do that way. So part of my whole journaling experience, the whole process, is to get data to feed my self-awareness and to help me to create a future that I want.
You know what I love about this set of prompts, Brandon, is that your questions are framed in such a positive way. There comes a point where we need to tell ourselves the truth, like, where did I blow it today is a solid afternoon question. Who did I hurt today, and how am I going to make it right? But if those are the only questions that we're asking, and in fact, those are usually the easiest questions for me to answer. The most difficult questions to ask are, what did I do well today? Or who did I help today? Those kinds of things. So I think it's super important that when we create a cluster of questions, we have about a 2-to-1 ratio of positive to potentially negative. And the way you framed these questions, they're non-judgmental. So there's not a negative question on here. That your responses may lean into some negativity, but the way you framed them, it's going to be easier to set your mindset right. And without judgment, that's a huge deal when it comes to journaling. This is awesome.
And part of what you said there was kind of like, that would be a question for the afternoon. And I would agree with that. You know, like if I'm ever going to include a question that has more of a negative slant to it, then it's not going to be in the morning. Like I want to start my morning with,
that's correct.
With something more that sets the tone for the day. You know,
Yep.
every day is a bit of a reset in a sense. Like you wake up and you have a chance to nail it once again, and you can focus on the things that go well or the things that you want to go well.
Yes.
And even if I was doing something that might elicit more of a what could I have done better, it's always going to be framed in the past is the past and how do I move forward.
Yep.
Right. So I think
Absolutely.
the framing and the intentionality of language when you're doing journaling is really important, because you want to spend time thinking how you want to think. You don't want to ruminate on negative thought patterns, because that's just going to create more of those negative thought patterns.
Yes. Like in the evenings, in the afternoons, in the evenings, we need to keep ourselves humble
Mm-hmm.
in terms of we're not perfect, but at the same time, you need to provide a solution for that problem that you created either for yourself or someone else.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and what's interesting is, for me, those afternoon questions are paperwork questions, because I know I'm going to have to answer at the end of the day, how did I blow it today? And how am I going to make an amend to Brandon? So while I'm talking to Brandon during the day, if I mess up, I'm going to really quickly say, Brandon, I'm sorry. The way I approached you today was wrong, and I hope you can forgive me.
Mm.
That keeps me from having to do the paperwork on that question.
Yeah, it's true. You kind of get it in real time because you know you're going to be journaling about it
Yeah.
later.
but it means more than that, because it keeps the relationship in as good a condition as it can be when it's up to me.
Yeah,
So yeah. Okay. This
So
is
there's so much you can do with it, right? And you can like I'd like to be able to inject as much randomness into my journaling and reflection process as I can. Like I'd like to have it be able to eventually generate a random contact within my close friends list or something like that, and then to do some journaling on that. Maybe the last time that I was in touch with them, like status of a relationship, ways that I can deepen connections with that person. Something thoughtful I could do, like that would be really productive. That would be super cool. There's so many ways you can do this, and one of the things I like about Roam is that it's only limited by your creativity. Like the building blocks are there, and you just need to figure out what would be valuable to you and put it to work. And we've got a whole community of people that are innovating workflows for how to engage with this software. So it's not even something you have to do yourself. Like once I have this figured out, then I'll chuck it on my demo database for how I use Roam, and then that's just going to be available for whoever wants to use a similar system.
That's fascinating. So how often so far are you able to review? I know that's part of your challenge right now, is to just continue the experiment. And we've touched on that a little bit, but for me, review is not much fun, especially analog. I was talking yesterday about how a journal like this, that's a book that's been beaten up a little bit and is full, it's a deeply satisfying experience to hold this and to thumb through it. But for me, there's also a reticence, because not only am I reading the words and the ideas and the thoughts on the page, I'm also, by my handwriting, getting a sense of my emotional state at the time. And I don't particularly like that all the time. And so Roam provides this objectivity, and I don't know that it's entirely a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
You and I have talked about the difference between analog and notebook, and I've decided in the last 24 hours that's a big difference.
Oh, it's a massive difference. I honestly I still prefer analog. Like I like the handwriting thing. I like the way that it feels expressing it through handwriting. I like looking back and seeing the handwriting, and it brings me back into that space more effectively, I think. So this work with journaling in Roam is still experimental for me. And I'm going to try and find ways to kind of clear that gap. And eventually, maybe if we get better handwriting to text software, you can kind of have your cake and eat it too, and like have the experience done via handwriting, but converted to text that can be manipulated in other important ways. like things that I could do with this that I couldn't do with handwriting would be, say, if I click on gratitude and I jump to block, I can then see the history of it, right?
That's why you don't need to make it a page then. Okay.
Right. So
I
yeah, this
hadn't
is
seen that
essentially a page.
before.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then I can filter out journaling prompts because that's just my regular thing on it. But then I'd like to be able to find a way
Okay.
to be able to expand all these blocks automatically. So these are all collapsed by default. And
Sure.
that's kind of hard to process. Like I have to go through and individually click on them.
Sure.
Meh, not great.
Yeah.
But like I can go and I can expand it, right?
Yep.
And yeah, like that's
Okay. I just
kind
got
of the
a
idea.
light bulb moment there. Okay. I'm with
Cool.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
Well,
kind of my goal, is to like to be able to look through the past and see it like that. And then the other thing I could do is I can use other tags on top of this. So say if I had a really good answer to this question today, I can say like highlight, boom, and then I can filter in highlight, and then I only see ones that are highlighted. So I'm getting the, you know, the highlight reel, the best of the best.
which is the Rome equivalent of using little sticky tabs to put on. Oh, yeah.
So then anywhere throughout your journaling practice, you have an answer that resonates really strongly with you that you want to be able to revisit in the future, chuck a highlight tag and filter by that. And then that allows you to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff.
Wow. How is this changing you so far, Brandon?
Again, we're early. So that question will ultimately be best answered in a couple of months' time, like after I've had a chance to put this to the test. But the potential of it feels very strong. Like I'm really enjoying it for like the practice that I did today with it. But I built this today. Like I had the idea within the last 2 weeks, but this particular expression of a journaling habit is hot off the press.
I appreciate you showing this to us, and I have a couple of quick things. The first is a suggestion for a couple of morning prompts that have been incredibly powerful for me.
Yeah.
The first is, what are you looking forward to today? Mm-hmm. The next is, what are you dreading today and why? There are some mornings when I wake up and I know the answer to the second question. And by sitting down and beginning my journaling process and answering the question, what am I looking forward to today, I can trick my brain by saying, okay, let's say I'm dreading doing thing X. I know the answer to that question when I get up. Well, if I answer the question, what am I looking forward to today? And that answer is something to the effect of being finished with thing X today. Yeah. Now all of a sudden I'm not dreading thing X anymore because I'm, let's go.
Yeah.
So the last question I have for you is, how does someone get in touch with you to keep track of how you're progressing on your atomic journaling journey?
Yeah. Best place right now is Twitter for sure. I've been pretty active on there, and I'm always happy to contribute to discussion. So if somebody sends me a message or, you know, just tags me in a tweet, then I'm happy to kind of engage with discussion about journaling that way. I'll also be putting this stuff on my Rome demo database, which is simply the place where I'm starting to collect the templates that I use, the workflows that I use, and different systems and some of my thoughts around how to best use the software. So I'll upload that into my Rome demo database, and I'll send you the link to that so you can include it wherever you feel might be helpful. Those are the two best places to get in touch with me for sure.
You also have a newsletter.
Yeah. So I have a newsletter on Substack as well. You can find that in my Twitter bio, but I'll send you the link to that. Actually, it might not be in my Twitter bio. Maybe it's kind of hidden. but it's great. I'm
Yeah.
really excited about the newsletter. And as I usually have a bit of a Rome corner associated with my newsletter, where I discuss how I'm using the system, kind of different aha moments and insights that I have over time that are changing my practice and effectively changing how I interact with the world in my life.
Well, thank you for taking us inside your journaling database and your practice and your experiments. I look forward to seeing what happens with atomic journaling.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Thanks, Brandon.